Welcome back. This episode, I just want to talk about the new bikes being launched in the market. So, in the last couple of weeks, they've had a whole range of new bikes being launched, mainly at the high end. So some of them are race bikes, other sort of gravel bikes, even a cross bike. So the brands that are launched have been BMC, Trek, Specialized, Merida, Cervelo, Giant. Even Pinarello have launched new colorways on their F12 and relaunched the Paris model from years ago. So one of the common themes that they're all sort of talking about is they go lighter and stiffer but more compliant. We've got more aero. Now, many are disc only, so they're not offering a rim brake version, so it's only disc. Many have also got unique branded parts like handlebars and stems and seat posts, etc. So it's the whole package and like module of the frame set. Often they've got integrated cables and the cockpit, so all this sort of as part of the aero features. Many have got more tyre clearance as well, and some have even gone back to threaded bottom brackets. So so let's cover some of these points. But first, we'll get to probably the biggest elephant in the room, and that's the prices. So the prices have continued to go up. So if we look at the Tarmac SL7, for example, the frame set only for the S-Works version is $5,000 US. For the 10R version, which is their lower grade carbon spec, it's $3,000 US. So if you ask me, $2,000 is a big difference in the cost of raw material in the carbon. You can buy lots and lots of Kool-Aid for that amount of money. And the labour cost is going to be the same. So where does the difference in this cost? Like, there's not going to be $2,000 worth of difference in material. I've yet to see any claims on the performance difference between those two models. It would only be weight anyway. The shape's going to be the same. And so how much different is it actually going to be? So, and maybe that the SL7 is heavier than the old SL6. And so, maybe they're sort of starting to realise some of the durability issues with these really light frames. So, and then, like many years ago, Specialized here, they sent me a damaged Tarmac SL4 Contador frame. It's actually that frame hanging up on the wall there. And it had been damaged in transit on the top tube, and they asked for a quote on repair. So the repair quote came in at $450, and they told me, don't bother with that because we can get a new one for that price. So that gives you an indication of the manufacturing cost of these items. So, but let's be clear that manufacturing cost is different to the total cost of the product, of sponsorship and marketing and all that sort of stuff. So, manufacturing cost is different to the total package, but still you can get an indication of that. Now it's been a bit of a joke that every year the bikes seem to get 20% lighter and X% stiffer. So surely, if that was the case, we'd be riding bikes that are infinitely stiff and weightless, right? But that isn't the case. So, so if anything, in my opinion, the focus on weight has been a race to the bottom, because it's such a simple metric. It's like, well, the lighter bike's got to be better, right? But it's not always like that. And particularly with a UCI race bike, you've got the 6.8 kilo rule anyway, and it makes no sense at all to be adding ballast, like non-structural ballast, into the bike, and compromising the durability of it. So you need the bike to finish the race, and having a bit of additional structural material is going to help that. So maybe they're sort of starting to realise that some of those things. So what about the compliance? Can you get a stiffer bike that is also more compliant? How can something be stiffer and yet less stiff at the same time? So, is that just marketing speak, or, so what is their definition of compliance anyway? Like, is it comfort, vibration damping, or something else? So it'd be interesting to get a bit more information from them on that. But now typically with a metal bike, a stiffer bike will give you a harsher ride. But with composites, it's possible to make, for example, a tube that's really stiff torsionally, but has got lower bending stiffness. And that's due to the fibre types and orientations and all that sort of stuff. So you can tune a tube to do certain characteristics. So, you can do a bike, a composite bike, which can have direct power transfer to the rear wheel, like to the chainstays and bottom bracket, etc., but still has a comfortable ride. So, that's a possible, but it's how is that actually defined, and that's probably one of the things which would be nice to get some clarification. So the next thing is the aero features. So now this is the hardest thing to quantify, because statements like this bike will save you 7 seconds in an hour, like that, it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous statement, because the conditions will change. Like in the outdoor world, there's so many variables. Like you can't say that you're going to ride 7 seconds, exactly 7 seconds quicker on one bike to another. Like totally ridiculous comment, right? I mean, there's no doubt that aerodynamics is very important in cycling. So at higher speeds, that's where your power is going to. It's moving air. However, to make a whole bunch of claims on on steady state assumptions, which are difficult to make in a short time trial, like a pursuit or something like that. It's difficult to make those assumptions, let alone a road race. Let's just say that their aero features are more about what it looks like to the untrained eye, as opposed to real performance features. They're too hard to define. Can you trust these claims anyway? So, I weighed a Cervelo Aspero frame just recently, and it has a claimed weight in a size 56 of 1,110 grams. The frame I weighed, and that's painted, and the frame I weighed was a 58, so a little bit bigger, but it was 1,430 grams. Without all the fittings, so painted without all the fittings. So, that's still a big difference between the claim and the reality. So, how do you trust these claims, especially the aerodynamic ones? Because the numbers for weight are very easy to check. Like you can get a bare frame and you can strip it down and you can weigh it on scale. So anybody can do that. You don't need any real special equipment to do that. But yet, they're making false claims on stuff that you can readily check. How can you trust the claims on on aerodynamics, which are very, very difficult to validate? It's to go into a wind tunnel. A, it's very expensive. B, you may not even get the answer you're looking for anyway. Like the variables in that situation are significant as well. So, you could basically call out any numbers that you like, and who's going to disprove that? It's very open, and so the point being, if they're making false claims about the weight, which are easy to disprove, how can you trust the aerodynamic claims when they're very difficult to validate. The next point was so disc brakes only. So that's becoming a bit of a thing. And look, discs are great for you know, for a range of reasons, and they certainly remove the problem of the braking overheating on the carbon rims, particularly on clincher rims, which is a dangerous situation. So they remove that situation. However, to be forced into having disc brake only, you know, is a disc brake the best in every situation? Like particularly in a race situation, you know, that's debatable. And you know, now you're forced to, if you're going to that, you've got to buy a new bike, new spare wheels, new this, new that. So all this extra extra spending to re-equip with, you know, what you already had effectively. So yeah, don't agree with being forced, having that forced upon you. Integrated components, it's another one. So, you know, they're becoming really common now. So you've got all the branded components. So so instead of in the old days, you know, you might have a 3T handlebar or an FSA handlebar or whatever. Now on a Trek you've got a Bontrager, and you know, on a Specialized you've got a Specialized. On the BMC you've got the BMC. So it's sort of like in the bike industry is trying to change how like how the car industry or the motorcycle industry is. You know, like you can't fit Honda parts onto a Suzuki motorbike, for example. So you know, it's all this modular system type systems, and I mean there's a number of legal reasons for doing that. Like you've got control over all the parts. Like, so if someone crashes on your bike due to handlebar failure, well, you've got control over that. Like, so you know, it's a different thing. Like if someone else's handlebar fails on your bike can still get the bad reputation. So you know, I can see legal reasons for that, but there's probably also some much larger profit margins by doing that as well, because they don't have to outsource other components. They bring all that in-house. So you know, so you're buying the complete item off that brand, and but then, you know, what is the life of those items? You know, is it planned obsolescence? Because then they can change that, and nothing else, you're stuck because nothing else will fit in that case. And if we use seat posts as an example, so you know, often you have a proprietary seat post, and I've had cases where the bike's been a few years old, you can't get a replacement seat post. The seat post has been damaged by over tightening. It renders the bike effectively inoperable. Like you don't have a seat post, you can't get one. So you know, people say, oh, they come up to me, oh, can you custom make me a seat post? And it's just like, yeah, I can, but it's not going to be a cheap option. So you know, some of those aspects are it's a little bit questionable in terms of that. But if you're turning your bike over every couple of years like they want you to do, then that's not a problem. So not a problem for them, but it could be a problem for you. The next point would be more tyre clearance. So you know, over the last few years, wider rubber has been common. You know, so you know, people are getting that for more comfort and grip, etc. And the frames have sort of lagged behind that a little while. And I've had, you know, it's very common for bikes to come in for repair where they've actually, you know, worn material from the stays, the chainstay, seat stays, etc. So, so it's good to see the frames have actually come up. You know, they've considered those aspects, and so that should be less of a problem in the future. You know, having more tyre clearance for that. And now the old threaded bottom brackets. So so you know, the brands, some of the brands like Specialized and Trek have made a big deal about how they've gone back to a threaded bottom bracket. Now you can see my previous videos on what I think of press fit versus versus threaded bottom brackets. In my opinion, a well manufactured press fit is far superior, and you have to remember that the threaded cup that you're threading into your frame has got the bearing pressed into it. So, like, why are you replicating that? And the only reason you're replicating that is because you're admitting that you can't make that interface to the required accuracy and repeatability. So by going back to a threaded, you're basically saying, we don't have the ability to manufacture this part at this accuracy and repeatability and still maximize our profits. So that's basically what they're telling you by going back to a threaded bottom bracket. So there's no technical reason why it's better. It's like, yeah. And sort of touching more on that. So Specialized, if we use them as an example, they've made a big deal in their marketing campaign about it's a no compromise design. So does that mean their earlier bikes were compromised? It's like, I don't know. It's just walking around in circles a bit. But I mean, you say they certainly compromised their bottom bracket tolerances in the past, and and going back to in English, they're basically admitting that they've compromised, and then you've got the BMC road machine. It also continues with the internal cables theme. Now they had problems. They had a recall recently, where they had steerer failures on the fork due to that, the design due to the internal cable. So hopefully they've resolved those issues to make a reliable part. We don't want to see more of those sort of failures happening. So anyway, time will tell how these features go in the market. Let me know in the comments what you think about these new bikes, and if you think that the prices are justified for the perceived technology that you're getting. Do you think that you're getting value at that dollar level for the technology? Do you feel like you're going faster with that, or is it much of a muchness? So let me know in the comments what you think about that. I'm also interested to hear what the shop mechanics think about all this internal cable. What they, I pull bikes apart and rebuild bikes and stuff all the time, and some internal cable systems are done really well, and others less than ideal. So, how do the mechanics, how do they like working on some of these internal cable bikes? What do they think about the proprietary parts? Shop owners, etc. How do you keep stock of that? Like, I mean, if you're a dealer for that brand and you only carry that brand, then it's probably quite good. It's quite manageable, and your profit margins are probably better. But if you're an independent shop, how does that work? So let me know in the comments some of those thoughts. And if you want to laugh, just have a listen to the podcast with the Specialized team that's going around, because some of the stuff is really funny. Anyway, we'll leave it at that, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Okay, bye.